Hello there, I'm Matt with State of Flux, here to talk to you about Lupin III, The Castle of Cagliostro. This is the second installment in my exploration of the works of Hayao Miyazaki as well as Studio Ghibli. Yet this is yet another installment that is not a Ghibli film per se. This film came out still a few years before Ghibli was established, but you can really see the groundwork of what Studio Ghibli will become emerge with this film, particularly in its final act, or the end of its final act. For those not in the know, The Castle of Cagliostro is an installment of the Lupin III franchise, which is, I believe, a French work that has been adapted into many anime films. This one, the directorial debut of Hayao Miyazaki. And I think that there's like even a live-action version of of Lupin the Third on Netflix as like a TV series. I could be wrong about that. But speaking of Netflix, that is how I saw this film. You can watch it both in its original Japanese with subtitles, should you need them, or the English dub. I think both are strong, and I won't necessarily lay out what my preference is because that's a kind of hot topic amongst anime connoisseurs. But yeah, I think as a directorial debut, this is really quite a strong film. And you see, even though this isn't one of his like truly original works, the elements come into play more so than with Panda Go Panda for what Miyazaki's movies and the groundwork for what Ghibli films will be really come into growth with this feature. Lupin III is the title character. The movie kind of opens with a bang as he, in this little caper, acquires all this money that he gets and discovers immediately that it's all counterfeit. So he uses his deductive reasoning and goes on a quest to figure out who is printing this counterfeit money in the hopes to gain the riches he originally tried to acquire. Along the way, he encounters a beautiful princess who is introduced in just one of the best and most wickedly cool entrances for a character. It reminds me very much of a moment that could have been out of a John Woo or a Tarantino film. But you have this princess driving a car, swerving radically around a bend, making eye contact with Lupin. In her bridal dress, the veil flowing behind her. It's an epic shot, kind of tells you everything you need to know about what this princess character is going to be, and continues the tradition that Miyazaki will eventually become known for, of having an important female lead that isn't just a strong female archetype, but also can be vulnerable and not have her power diminished by her vulnerability in any way. This is where the movie really kind of kicks off. Lots of stuff happens. Lupin tracks the counterfeiting to the Castle of Cagliostro, which is the name of the film. And Cagliostro is the villain of this piece. One thing that also you find in this film is the villain poses an actual threat, as happens with a lot of Miyazaki's works, which is something that I appreciate. The villains in a lot of his films, Princess Mononoke, Castle in the Sky, do pose genuine threats to the main characters, where you believe that their viability and survivability of the heroes comes into question at the end. And this villain kind of really, I think, kicked that off for the works of Miyazaki. The final act is where this movie really comes into excellent play and showcases not only really strong animation, but exposes the power that animation can have, because there's genuine elements of peril as they scale this clock tower. The heroes are being chased by Cagliostro as they're fleeing. They're climbing up the gears of this clock tower, trying to get to the top, and then eventually outside of the clock tower, where they have sort of their battle of wits on the hands of the clock. And what really works there is animation allows you to get as close to the moment of danger before pulling away. Far more so than like any live action elements could make that work, because you're not going to not be able to see how the visual effects are making this happen. I think animation really benefits this film in this way for this scene. And the way that Lupin and the princess combat Cagliostro at the end, I think, is really quite fun and ingenious. And the dismissal of the Cagliostro character is pretty brutal. You don't really see anything. A lot of it is implied with sound effects and whatnot, but it is it did make me like full body cringe. So yeah, there's that. But right after the conclusion of the villain is where it feels for the first time like a true work of Studio Ghibli. You have the animation style is a little bit brighter. The music comes into play in a way that you will identify with the works of Ghibli with the later films. And the core theme of the film really gets examined, which the whole film is about treasure and whatnot, and riches. And so when you get to that, and the discovery that the riches aren't necessarily wonderful jewels, but something a little more philosophical in nature than physical cashy monies, is pretty important to other films in Miyazaki's line of work. Castle in the Sky comes to mind as well. The fact that there's something more to this world than the money that we so desire, and something that's a little more intellectual, is neatly examined at the end of this film, but will be extrapolated upon and further fleshed out in later works. But the one thing I want to draw attention to with the Castle of Cagliostro is what I call the element of human fallibility that Miyazaki always puts in his directorial efforts. Each of his movies, starting with this one, has a moment where, in animation, things tend to be like wickedly fluid. This was first pointed out to me on the DVD extras of Spirited Away. And in animation, you have a character that would put on a shoe and then run off out of the scene, out of the frame, to get to the next one. Miyazaki gives a moment of pause for a weight of human element, where the female character in that puts on the shoe, pauses for a second, and adjusts it to make sure the shoe fits comfortably before running out of the frame. Few films and animation would do something like that. It is a purely human element that is not... it's just very realistic. And a lot of his films have a moment where the fluidity of motion gets paused for a second because humans aren't always perfectly fluid. And this film, again, in that climax, has Lupin pulling out his gun and it gets caught in his jacket, and he's like trying to unstick the gun from his jacket before pulling it out and pointing it. And that was like the first moment in a Miyazaki movie that that really comes into play, and it's something that will carry on in literally every feature that he directs. Some movies are full of wonderful human moments like that. Totoro kind of comes to mind there, but this is the first one that really kind of started that. The Castle of Cagliostro, even though it is a definite improvement over Panda Go Panda, still only gets 3 out of 4 stars in my book. It has the middle chunk of the film is kind of meanders a bit. Going from Panda Go Panda, which was incredibly child-friendly, certainly the most child-friendly film of his entire body of work, even though he only wrote it, this kind of skews the other direction, where this one's far more adult than most of his other films, short of Princess Mononoke. I think this is the only one of 2 that are rated PG-13. There's quite a bit of gunplay in this film, which isn't a bad thing. There's not much in the way of blood or anything like that. It's just rated PG-13, I think, mainly for the gunplay. But the film does meander a bit, overstays its welcome, but its strong first and final acts, especially that final act, make it definitely worthwhile and a strong directorial debut. The next film in the exploration of the works of Studio Ghibli is the last one that is not a work of Ghibli, though has fully been adopted into the Ghibli lineup sort of retroactively, and that will be Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind. So stay tuned for that review, and with that one onwards, I'll be able to get into a little more of the analysis of the films as we move forward. So hope you enjoyed. Let me know what you thought of this movie, if this is one of your films of Miyazaki's that you quite enjoy. And let me know if there's... I haven't seen any of the other works in the Lupin the Third lineup, including the new Netflix show that I think exists, or my brain is just like manufacturing a non-existent entity, so let me know about that. But let me know if any of these other films are any good. The only reason I ever saw this one was because it was a film of Miyazaki's. But he is kind of an interesting and fun character, very sprightly, and there's something compelling about him. So I would be interested in moving on and seeing another film in the Lupin lineup. So let me know which ones you think are the best. Thanks, and thanks for watching.